without, out of a surplus or a deficit by, wait, but look, that makes your argument worse, because we're going to have, in the budget rules provided, we've just been following the budget rules, we're going to vote on an emergency bill that's going to take more money out of the surplus, not less. It makes your problems voting for this even more stringent. It isn't $80 billion if you put it together. It's going to be $120 or $115 billion that is taken out of the surplus, all of which comes from Social Security. In that sense, you're raiding the Social Security fund.
Mr. McCurry here. Mr. McCurry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, let me get this straight. It's worse for us to vote for a tax cut to help families, farmers, small businesses retain some of the money that they earn and take the money out of the surplus. That's worse than voting for a spending increase, an increase in government spending, and just adding to the deficit. I'm glad you clarified that, because that makes the differences between your side and our side pretty plain.
Gentleman yield.
Yes.
You're in control. You have the majority. The problem we have is that emergency spending has never been budgeted in under the cap.
Oh, I'm not referring only to emergency spending.
This is only, no, I don't think there's been any spending that's been approved that's not provided for in the cap other than an emergency spending bill.
Mr. Cardin, I said in the career of Mr. Levin, I can guarantee you there are plenty of votes on the record where Mr. Levin voted for increases in discretionary spending that were not paid for but simply added to the deficit.
If we had a budget resolution, sir.
My friend from Louisiana.
With the gentleman, well, the budget resolution just says we're going to have this much deficit, at least in your day. Now we've got a budget resolution in the future, we hope, that says we're going to have surpluses. So there is a big difference, but I would submit to you that voting for a tax cut to let people keep some of what they earn and taking it out of the surplus is better than voting for spending increases and adding to the deficit. Now, you can keep arguing that if you want, but
with my friend
television channels will stay here long enough, we'll argue that all day long. But the thrust of the amendment that we're dealing with here is to say there's going to be no tax cut for the foreseeable future. If anybody thinks that we're going to pass next year a Social Security fix, you're dreaming. It's not going to happen. We're going to start the process, I hope, and we're going to get down the road and put some proposals on the table, but I don't think we're going to get through the political process in the next 12 months or the next probably 2 years a fix for the Social Security system. And by the way, the proposals to which you referred that are on the table have been estimated to cost far less than $1.6 trillion. The transition costs, while significant, range anywhere from $650 billion up to about $850 or $900 billion. They don't even reach $1 trillion. So, you know, we're prepared to fix Social Security, to make it actuarially sound, and we're prepared to set aside a good, healthy chunk of the surplus to do that. But to sit here and say we ought to just set aside every penny of it, I think is going too far, especially when we have the opportunity in an economy which may just need a little push to give people a tax break, to give people a chance to spend more of their own money.
If the gentleman would yield.
Yes.
This is not a pie-in-the-sky trigger. It triggers off so that the tax cut goes into effect when the so-called surplus makes the Social Security trust fund solvent. And under one of my amendments, we can take the monies that come in off of
reclaiming my time, maybe you can explain the language to me, but the language that I'm looking at says that long-range solvency means when the Social Security Board of Trustees certifies that the trust funds are in actuarial balance. The
Yes.
gentleman denying that that's what he
No,
means?
when we get the figures.
That's
then
not what the
it's-
gentleman said.
When it's in balance, then the Congress can act, and it triggers off the tax cut. So,
The Board of Trustees will not be able to certify that the trust fund is an actuarial balance until this Congress and the President agree on a plan to fix Social Security. And so my previous statement stands.
Chairman, yield briefly.
Be glad to yield.
As I indicated, it hasn't been in balance since 1983, and I didn't see
Right.
a lot of hand-wringing at the time that you were operating with a deficit structure. What we're proposing is to move forward prudently, making sure that a significant and adequate amount is applied to Social Security, but some very necessary and worthwhile assistance to today's taxpayers is accompanied with it.
The fact is that we are going to be responsible and fix Social Security and give a tax cut. We
Exactly.
can and should do both.
Exactly.
Fix Social Security and give a tax cut.
Mr. Chairman?
I guess I would ask Ms. Paul and Mr. Lubick to keep my numbers straight here, and I want to do this within, give me a $5 or $10 billion leeway here if I can. If in fact, well, let's say it another way, money that's in the Social Security Trust Fund cannot be spent for defense, I believe, or public works. I think that's correct. It's dedicated to the Social Security system. Ms. Chesser is nodding in agreement. So, and if Social Security were off budget or separate, it's my understanding there would then be about a $140 billion deficit this year. Is that, give or take, $10 billion in the ballpark? It's 140 over 10 years, I'm sorry. It's only 30 or 40 billion this year that we'd be, is that about right? 30 or 40 billion this year if you separated Social Security from the rest of the budget. And 140 maybe over the longer period of time. The argument, it seems, is that Social Security is going along. If we were separate, we are basically, we have no surplus, setting Social Security aside. We are operating at a deficit for the income taxes that come in and go out to pay for defense and public works and Part B and all the rest. And nobody intends, the Republicans or the Democrats, to take money out of the Social Security Trust Fund. We haven't suggested that. Really, what we're saying is that because you cannot basically spend the money in the Social Security Trust Fund, which used to be separate from the rest of the budget, we are, in all the other accounts that are lumped together, operating at a deficit. And there are many of us who feel, most of my constituents, that this then, therefore, is the wrong time to cut taxes. They tend to set Social Security aside and say the rest of the government, absent Social Security, is operating at a deficit. We are not taking in enough current income tax and other revenues, absent Social Security, to pay for the operation of the government. And I don't think that's incorrect. If in general that's incorrect, I'd like to hear it, but that's where we are. Now, I'm not going to suggest that by cutting these taxes and helping the marriage penalty, we are hurting my mother or Bill Archer's Social Security, but we are increasing the Social Security notwithstanding that deficit. And the issue is, nobody is coming after me to ask for a tax cut as opposed to correcting the managed care problem, as opposed to helping education, all of which cost money. Helping the home health issue, which is going to cost $1 billion. So my opposition or my support of the Rangel amendment is that we're not being very responsible. We are eating our dessert before we've eaten the spinach. And in our rush to make the public happy, we are in the same position as the president. We're trying to explain this so-called surplus the way he's trying to explain sexual relations. And I don't think the public's going to buy it. I think that they recognize that we're having a tax cut when there is, in fact, a deficit. And where it comes from or which program is being harmed is impossible to determine, but it's not impossible to determine that if were there a separate budget, we're in deficit. And I think that's reason enough, if you choose to be fiscally responsible, to support the Rangel Amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been listening to this debate and made a few observations. The speakers of the minority party have been talking about sticking to the budget. Now, if my memory is correct, for the many years that I served in this Congress under the Democrat leadership, I cannot remember one single spending bill that went through without a rule that waived the Budget Act. So let's not hear about responsibility under the Budget Act. And the chairman has made it very clear that this thing will be in accordance with the Budget Act for him to continue to support it. But I really want to get down to talking about the so-called paid for. These things are paid for. I would submit to all of the members that say this was not paid for that it is paid for. And it's been paid for by the taxpayers of this country. They are paying too much taxes. And that is a fact. And that is something that I think shows the basic difference between the Democrat and the Republican Party. The president is quoted as saying in a speech today to a group of union people that we are squandering the surplus. Well, let's take a look at how we're squandering it. Let's take a look at who's getting the advantage of this. Let's take a close look at the inequities of the tax code that we are correcting here. You're talking about middle income, two working spouses in a family that are struggling to get through and are trying to educate their kids, feed their families, pay their mortgage, and do all the things that they have to do today. That's who this is directed at. So let's not lose our way. I would say that because of the distribution of this tax cut, that the minority party, the people on the Democrat side of the aisle, are very uncomfortable with their opposition to this, but feel that they've got to in some way follow through with the administration and get ready for a veto of this package. I'm not so sure the president at the end of the day is going to finally veto this package, but assuming that he does, I think it's in election year particularly, and because of the way this thing distributes, that the Democrats are going to have a very, very tough time voting against this bill, because the very people that they depend upon as a main part of their support are the people who are mainly getting help and getting some much-needed tax relief. Now, one other thing that I think we need to look at, and Mr. Gebhardt said this, he said that this is a giveaway. I think that is a basic difference of philosophy, is how we look at the taxes and how we look at the revenue that comes into this money, into this government. It's not a giveaway. Taxes are a takeaway. And we are reducing the takeaway because we're taking away more than we had anticipated in some of the earlier projections. Now, notwithstanding that, we're still going to leave the main part of the surplus intact to pay down on the deficit. And I think that is a wonderful way to handle the thing, and I compliment the chairman. It's an excellent bill, and I would hope that we do pick up some support on the Democrat side of the aisle, and I hope that all of you will be looking forward to the day that you're going to go to the polls in November and see exactly how your attitude is towards the taxes that you're taking away from your constituents and taking it away in such an unfair manner as it is in this marriage penalty tax.
Would the gentleman yield?
I'll be glad to yield.
I think you have really honestly framed the question correctly. You did put it in a very, very political terms. And I think that we all, as legislators, are taking risk as to what we really believe is in the best interest of the people of the United States. You have said that this surplus, which has been generated directly by people making contributions to the Social Security system, And I think Ms. Johnson said that it was an unexpected largesse.
Reclaiming my time, I said nothing of the sort. This surplus, and by the way, it is a surplus under the unified budget. It's a surplus as the way that the president handles it, Social Security when he sends us his budget. This is the way the budgeting is done.
Well, I was going to ask you a question, but if you reclaim your time, we can
No, I'll be
bypass
glad.
it, you know.
Well,
All
my
I'm
time-
saying is that you framed the question correctly, and that is, do you want to save Social Security system, or do you want to give a tax cut before the election? And I agree with you.
Reclaiming my time.
We can do
We
both.
are going to be accountable to those people who are scalping under the tax bill, and I look forward to it. And believe me, taking just 10% of this surplus and trying to do away with some inequities. Remember, you endorsed, in your opening remark, you endorsed the tax bill, but you just don't think it's time to do it. Well, I would suggest that you endorse it with your vote. I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Becerra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess it's been made clear, but perhaps muddled, but my understanding of the $1.5 trillion or $1.6 trillion surplus, as we're calling it, for the entire budget of this country, 98% of it is composed of monies that working men and women today, yesterday, and tomorrow are contributing into the Social Security Trust Fund. Only 2% of that, some $31 billion out of the 1.5 or 6 trillion, is really made up of money that the federal government, outside of the Social Security Trust Fund, has been able to contribute to that surplus by having spent less than it takes in. $31 billion over the next 10 years of the 1.5 trillion or 1.6 trillion that we'll have in surplus. So when we speak in terms of the federal budget surplus, it's true. The entire federal budget surplus is $1.5 or $1.6 trillion. But if you ask people in America, when they talk about a federal budget surplus, if they imply that Social Security monies deposited by working Americans every day should be part of what the government's operating expenses are and its operating budget should be, I suspect they'll tell you, no, we want that reserved for when we retire. So if you were to remove everything that Social Security contributions by America's working men and women have been giving, are giving, and will give, we can honestly say we have about $31 billion to play with over the next 10 years. Now, over the next 5 years, we're told that
Would the gentleman yield?
As soon as I finish my remarks, I'd be happy to yield. So over the next 5 years, what we're told is that this particular bill's tax cuts will cost this country $80 billion. Over the next 10 years, I think the estimate is somewhere around $170 billion. Well, if over the next 10 years, the real surplus that this government in its operation will produce is $31 billion, certainly that's a lot less than the $170 billion that these tax cuts over the next 10 years will cost us. And if you look only at the 5-year time frame of the bill itself, where we talk about $80 billion, we actually have over those 5 years a deficit in the federal government's operating budget of some $137 billion. So we don't even have monies over the next 5 years to play with unless you choose to include working men and women's contributions to the Social Security Trust Fund. Now, in the process, as my colleague and friend from Connecticut, Ms. Johnson said, in trying to straighten these things out in the tax code through this tax bill on things that we didn't straighten out in last year's tax bill, I think most of us on this side say, that's fine, let's do it. But let's not do it at the expense of those working men and women who are contributing Social Security dollars into what they believe is a trust fund for their Social Security retirement. This bill overall, as I think every member on this Democratic side has said, is a decent bill. Using working men and women's Social Security contributions in this country to pay for this bill's tax cuts will help some farmers, it will help some married couples, it will help some small businessmen and women. But if we were to save all of those Social Security contributions by America's working men and women, we wouldn't just help some of the farmers or some of the small businessmen and women and some of the married couples in this country, we'd help all of them, because sooner or later, those small businessmen and women, those farmers, those married couples will all reach retirement age. And God willing, they do. And if they don't, they're lucky to know that their surviving spouse,
With the gentleman yield.
or I will as soon as I have a chance to finish my comments, surviving spouse, or the children, should they happen to pass away, will benefit from the Social Security contributions. But to use what is in essence Social Security trust funds that working men and women today are contributing for what they believe are retirement benefits guaranteed by this government, I think is what causes some of us some difficulty. If it were paid for, this tax bill would probably sail without many dissenting votes. But at this stage, until we see that there's something to secure the dollars that today people watching this on TV believe are Social Security dollars for retirement, I think it would be a shame to leave that deceptive impression for the American people. I will yield.
With the gentleman here, there is not one single plan or not one single thing before this committee today from either the Republicans or the Democrats that is any way going to impact upon the Social Security fund. Nobody has put forth anything that's going to put one more dime into the Social Security fund, and you know that.
In response to the gentleman, I would just say, unless someone can show me that there will be more money available other than what the Social Security Trust Fund contributes, we will be using Social Security Trust Fund. Yield back.
The gentleman's time is expired. Mr. McCurry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted just a minute to respond to the gentleman from California because he has really mischaracterized the situation with the Social Security Trust Fund, and it's not right to do that to the American people. What you have said is that the amount of revenues coming into the Social Security Trust Fund over the next 10 years, both in terms of payroll taxes and interest due on the obligations that form the trust fund, that amount is equivalent to most of the surplus that we're talking about, and that is true. But then for you to take the next step and say, therefore, if we spend any of the surplus on tax cuts or on spending programs, we're taking money from the Social Security Trust Fund is just not the truth and is not an accurate representation of what happens.
Would the gentleman yield?
Look, we have three choices. I will in just a moment, just like you did when the yellow light comes on. We have three choices. When the money comes in payroll taxes right now and for the next several years, it's more than we need to pay every penny of Social Security benefits. Therefore, we have a surplus in the trust fund. We don't stick that under a mattress. We invest it in United States securities. That means we buy bonds from the United States government and put the bonds in the trust fund. The government, though, gets cash. The government has to do something with the cash. Therefore, over the next 10 years, with $1.6 trillion of cash that we must do something with, we have three choices, basically. We can buy back the publicly held debt, which is a good option. We can reduce taxes. We can increase spending. Now, under the category of increased spending, we have all been talking about here, or alluding to, a solution for the Social Security crisis that's looming 40 years down the road. That's going to cost some money. We're going to have to spend some of the surplus to fix the Social Security problem. We don't think, though, that we're going to have to spend more than $800 or $900 billion to do that. That leaves us with $800 or $700 billion to either reduce taxes or buy back the debt, both of which, economically speaking, are good options. But we think we ought to give back at least a small amount to the taxpayers right now to fix some of the things that we all agree are wrong with the tax code, the marriage penalty. I dare say there's not anybody on this panel, Democrat or Republican, who would defend the marriage penalty. We want to do something about it. We now have the wherewithal to do it without adding to the deficit like the former majority did year after year after year with increased spending. So those are the three choices. Let's not try to gobbledygook this thing up by talking about robbing the trust fund and all that stuff. That's just not so, and you ought not say it. I will yield.
Thank you. And I don't disagree with a good portion of what the gentleman just said, but unless money grows on trees, we have to balance our books. And you either have a dollar coming in or a dollar going out. And The three options the gentleman stated, I think, are accurate. But it is true that if you buy down the debt, you, one, probably allow this economic recovery to continue, and you also reduce the size of the deficit when it comes time to try to resolve the problems we have with Social Security, which doesn't have enough money in it into the far future.
You don't
So
reduce the
one way or
deficit,
other,
you reduce
have
the
to
debt.
pay.
And I don't disagree with the gentleman and I said, to buy down the publicly held debt is a good thing, economically speaking. I would submit to you that to reduce taxes is also a good thing, economically speaking. And right now, we can do both. Thank goodness. And we can fix the Social Security problem. That's what we're going to do in the next 4 years, I hope, is buy down the debt, fix Social Security, and give more tax breaks.
The gentleman for the yield?
I yield.
Well, on the question of the interest earned by that money that is paid in by Social Security contributions, seems to me that if I were to invest my money in a bank, I didn't expect not just the principal, but the interest to belong to me. I would think that the working men and women who contribute to Social Security would expect that not just what they contributed in taxes, but the money earned by those taxes paid into Social Security.
No argument there, and we're going to do that. That's what we're talking about when we say fix the Social Security system. We are going to fix it in a way that working men and women will get all of their benefits due them when they finally retire. And we're talking about my generation and the next generation. So we are going to fix it. That's exactly what we're talking about, making sure that that interest is there and payable when it comes due.
Gentleman's time has expired. Ms. Thurman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Well, I haven't said this bill was good or bad, so I don't know that I can be one of those that has said this is such a great bill. But let me just say a few things here without doing the hair splitting that we've been doing over where this surplus is coming from. First of all, I want to say to my friend, Mr. Haywood, that if I went home to my constituents and said, if you're a farmer, or if you're a woman, or if you're a small business, this is what I could give back to you with 10% of the surplus, and this would be good for you, I think my constituents would have said yes to that as well. But when I went home over this break, I told them that 6 years ago, I came here with $290 billion deficit. Today, 6 years later, I stand here to tell you that we have a $63 billion surplus this year. Okay, but when I went on to tell them about things, and Mr. Greenspan, who has spoken before this Congress over and over and over again, and Mr. McCrary, to exactly what you said, the issue is that what he said on July 22nd, to paraphrase, was, my first choice is still to reduce the debt, which is another way of saying there is no need to rush into any particular action because the debt will be reduced automatically so long as the surplus exists. But he went on to say, in a Washington Post article basically, by definition, a surplus or lower deficit insofar as it adds to the pool of national savings available for investment adds to likely long-term growth. Mr. Greenspan observed as well that a surplus, by reducing demand, reduces inflationary pressure so that less is required of monetary policy. The Federal, always on the alert against inflation, need not be so quick to raise interest rates. That's double contribution to growth, which is a tax cut by reducing the surplus, would dissipate. He also cautioned, and we know this better than anybody from watching over the last couple of weeks, he also cautioned that the surplus is a projection only and may not materialize. The estimates are based in part on higher than anticipated revenues, part of which derive from the profits of a booming stock market. Such booms tend not to last forever, and I'm not convinced that this is going to go on as we see it. But I think what else he said was that if we take this debt and not spend it, whether it's tax cuts or whatever, and we put it away to do this debt, that we could potentially see a 2% interest rate drop in this country. So Mr. Hayward, to your farmers, to Mr. Bunning's seniors, to Mrs. Dunn's women, I want to see a 2% decrease in interest rates in this country so all Americans participate in this prosperity.
Gentlewoman, yield. Lady yield. Gentlewoman, yield.
Sure.
Thank you, gentlewoman. And the argument in terms of producing more money available for investment, I think, is a correct one. The only concern that I might have is who can draw on that amount that's out there available for investment. A number of people can draw on it. Some will get it, some will not. All we're saying is, what's wrong with 90 cents of the dollar being available for that and 10 cents being directed to the very people primarily responsible for bringing it in the first place, the taxpayers? If it was 40-60 or 50-50, we're talking
regaining my time, Mr. Thomas,
90-10.
I would say to
Thank
you,
the gentlewoman for
the
yielding.
interest rates in this country going down helps everybody, not just a few. If you go into a business and you buy a product because they have a 2% less interest rate, guess what? That product will possibly be cheaper for that
Would the
person.
gentlelady yield?
So I'm just, I mean, I have not made, no, I won't at this point. I have not made the comments of my colleagues of, yes, this is a tax bill that's good. Quite frankly, I looked at it yesterday. Most of this is accelerating things that I've already voted on, and it's taking money out of the surplus to do that. But if I believe, and I do believe, that this economy is in good shape right now, and I believe that if we keep this money and we pay down that debt, that's what my constituents are telling me to do. That's what they're telling me gives them the ability to prosper in this economy.
Would the gentlelady yield?
Mr. Hayward first, and then...
I thank my friend from Florida, and I appreciate the picture that and the illustration that you offer us, but there's one major part of the equation that is missing that we need to understand from observing the way Washington has worked. One of the things my constituents told me across the width and breadth of the 6th District is that if you have a surplus and you fail to return it to the American people, Washington spends it. It doesn't stay there to buy down the debt. Washington
Mr. Hayward,
spends it, and
in
we've already
reclaiming
seen it
my
from the
time,
president with the Bosnian
let me suggest
situation.
to you that while I have not been here for 14 or 15 years and not responsible for much of the deficit that was in this, I can tell you that since I have been here, I have continually watched the debt come down because of what we've done. So I think that while you may say that and your constituents may say that, I think we've also put fiscal responsibilities and controls into these budgets today that may not have been there before. And I think if we follow those, then we can continue the economy in the right direction.
Gentlelady yield.
Would the gentlelady
Gentlelady yield to Maryland.
Thank you.
I'll come back.
The gentlelady, I think, makes a point that cannot be contradicted, that it is good economic policy to buy down the publicly held debt.
That's right.
And I've said that, and I agree with you. The question, though, is how far do we go down that road? Would you suggest that we use any future surplus to just extinguish the entire debt and not make any changes in spending policy that would increase spending and not make any changes in tax policy that would reduce taxes? Probably not.
Well,
but that's the logical extension of what you're saying.
But in reclaiming my time,
Yes.
last year, if I remember correctly, we did a very good tax bill, and we gave back money in this country. And I think what we're saying this year basically is, okay, let's not hurry into this. Let's wait and see. One, let's see what's going to happen in this economy. And two, let's go ahead and keep this surplus at this time. Why do we have to just continually spend the money on tax reduction?
That's a legitimate point of view.
I'll yield.
Just very quickly, let me point out, it's interesting how we talk about a surplus. There's not a corporation in America that pays money into a retirement plan that could bookkeep the way we bookkeep Social Security. There is no surplus. You can't go, corporation can't go in and borrow from its contributions to its retirement plan. We don't have a surplus. We have a deficit today. So what this bill does is just add more to the operating deficit. If we acted like any other company in the way that we kept our books, we wouldn't be having this discussion today, and we would be paying for this tax bill rather than trying to deal with it the way that the underlying bill does.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Mr. Hayward, if you still wish time, yield back the balance of your time.
Mr. Chairman?
Chair's prepared.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McDermott.
I sense a certain lack of... I sit and listen to this thing, and I feel like I'm sitting on the board of trustees of a church that's building a new building. and we've had the collections come in, and there's more than we need to operate right this year. And the Board of Trustees is saying, well, we got a little extra money, let's give it back to the parishioners. But we've got the debt of a building campaign just sitting there. We got this great thing. Everybody has been going around as long as I've been in Congress telling me about how awful it is that we have used Social Security to balance the budget. So we got this big debt out there, just like if we were building a church. And everybody's saying, well, a little extra came in. We don't want to pay debt on the building. Let's give it back. Next Sunday, we won't take up the collection. If you made that suggestion in most churches that are building buildings, they'd think you'd lost your mind. And in my view, I mean, I sit here and try and think, how am I going to explain this to my mother? I mean, she's 88 years old. My father's 93. They're sitting out there watching this on C-SPAN Extra, and all this stuff that you kind of finagling around the edges, my mother understands how they built the building at the church. And the American people understand in those terms that while you may have a little extra now and you want to give it back, you are ignoring this great big debt that everybody's been talking about for the last 10 years. The whole business about why we have talked about balancing the budget was related to the fact that we had this great big debt out there. Mr. Rangel's amendment simply says, let's be sure this thing is balanced and we've paid off our debts before we start giving it back again. You can find somewhere else. You want to cut some program, cut the defense budget or cut something else and come up with $80 billion, then we'll give the tax break. There ain't anybody up here who doesn't want to give the tax break. A lot of us have voted for those. In fact, some of us have even proposed them. But they want them paid for. I want them paid for. And I think that's why Mr. Rangel's amendment's a good amendment. I yield back the mouse.
Mr. Chairman?
The chair,
Mr. Chairman?
the chair is constrained to say a couple of things after the gentleman's comments, which create an interesting metaphor. The church situation he described as one where the church has already taken the money in contributions. This is a case where we have not already taken the money. We're not talking about giving something back. We're talking about restraining the amount of money that we take in the next 10 years because we don't think it's appropriate to continue with the highest tax take in peacetime history from the working people of this country and the claim, now it's ours. Now it's ours. Boy, we can't give any of that back. It isn't ours. It isn't ours at all. It belongs to the people who earned it. And if we let them keep more of it, then yes, we will not have quite as big a, quote, surplus. But they need it. And it just so happens at this fragile time in our economy, we need people to have more in their pockets. Alan Greenspan is changing some of his rhetoric, some of his comments already about the concerns for the future of this nation and the world. And we are not divorced from that. And that future today is more fragile than it was even 3 months ago. We have the tightest fiscal policy in the 28 years that I've been in the Congress of the United States. We are taking far more out of the economy. It is not an expansionary governmental fiscal policy today. And we should be very concerned about that because America is the last hope for the world with its economy. And this economy must continue to grow. And there are times when a tight contractionary fiscal policy may not be in the best interest of the future of everybody in this country, including the payroll taxes that will be provided to go into the Social Security Trust Fund. And now is exactly the right time to let people keep more of their earnings in this economy to keep it growing. And now I recognize Mr. Jefferson.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I do not mean to lecture this committee, nor could I if I tried. But I am somewhat distressed about where we are headed with this debate, which I think is probably nowhere in the end. The president announces that he's going to veto a bill. We have questions about whether or not we're breaking budget rules. All the questions about whether this is a surplus or not a surplus, and if it is, if it belongs to the Social Security system alone. All these concerns mean that we end up with, at the end of the day, not very much that any party here wants to get done. Those who admit these are good tax cuts, and those who argue that we have to make sure we take care of Social Security first. So I hope that we'll bring some reality to this debate and find some way that we can work together to get something done for this country and really find some way to better utilize the talents and the time of this committee. If we were going to give back a tax cut and do it properly, we wouldn't give it back in all these discrete ways that we're talking about here, whether it's marriage penalty, any such other thing. If our idea was to give people back what they've paid in, we'd give it back in the payroll tax. That's how they paid it. If we were really being symmetrical about this thing and doing the right thing here, we'd give it back to those folks who had paid it in. And if the surplus arises because of a payment of payroll taxes, then let's do that if we're going to do something that makes sense in this regard. If we're going to talk about a more general tax break because people paid more income tax than they should have, then, as some have said, we've got to find some way to take from the general income tax pool of payments money enough to satisfy these concerns. That is where we're headed. That is what this committee, this Congress, wills to do. So. This is spending. It's what it is, and it's spending from a certain pot of money. There are only two ways that the government spends money. It appropriates it and spends it, or it spends it through tax deductions, or through tax breaks, or through tax rebates, or whatever this you may call through a tax cut. But nonetheless, it is spending. And when my friend from Arizona says that if we don't give it back in tax breaks, we'll spend it. We are spending it. We are spending it from the payroll trust fund, and I'm from the Social Security Trust Fund, which is the result of payroll taxes. So, I wish I were working on a product here that, when in the end we'd say we'd done something. I know we probably will find some way to point the political finger at one another, but the sad thing is, in the end, I don't think we're going to accomplish very much. Yield back my time.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been listening to the debate, I think, a lot like Ms. Thurman and Mr. Jefferson, too, and I'm distressed by the tone that it's taken as well. And particularly when Ms. Thurman made her statement, it did remind me of something that I think we do forget in this debate, and that is we made a $43 billion, as I recall, and I'd be happy if the Treasury would tell me different, that would be fine, but as I understand it, we made a $43 billion debt repayment this year. I'll say that again, because it's the first time since 1973 that was done. We repaid the national debt, paid it back, paid down debt, just as Alan Greenspan suggested we should do, which, by the way, when he was testifying, he suggested we ought to repay about $20 billion. That would be a big deal for him. So $43 billion by the third quarter of this year, which does not even mention the fact that we may pay as much as 63 or plus, depending on what happens here by the end of the fiscal year. We may make an additional down payment on the national debt toward debt reduction, which is significant, and I think is lost in this whole debate. I said that to a reporter today. They say, aren't you using, you're using a surplus? I said, wait a minute. Let's talk about 1998, for example. I mean, when we were on the budget committee here a few years ago, we were still talking about deficits in this year. I mean, if you forget for a moment where you are, you wouldn't believe what year this is. We're talking about surpluses. We have the first opportunity in a generation to actually pay down the debt, and we did it this year. There wasn't anybody standing up, let's use it for this, let's use it for that. We paid down the debt, which is exactly, as Ms. Thurman discovered, exactly what my constituents in Iowa told me to do. They said, pay down the debt. I said, let's do it. We did it. We didn't use that for anything else. There aren't many supplementals for those kinds of things. There may be, and we'll get to that, but at least for the time being, it looks good. I think that is significant, and I hope, because it sounds like there's a few Democrats that are still possibly holding out the option of voting for this or considering it. If that is true, I would just suggest to you that there are many of us that have wrestled with this whole question about what to do with this surplus, quote unquote. And I think it really does have to come down to this first issue about, are we doing our job toward paying down the debt, as has been suggested by every economist? We did that. That was job one. Job two, are we doing something to put down, a down payment towards Social Security? I haven't heard of anybody who came out with a plan before the chairman that suggested anything even close to 90%. On our side, that is. I heard many that suggested 100%. So, I mean, the fact that we've even come to this point, I think, is a major obstacle that has been crossed. And a modest, I mean, I understand the church analogy, but when the IRS starts passing around brass plates and volunteering your contribution, then we can make the church analogy. This is the people's money, and as the chairman suggested, we're not giving it back to them. We're just not taking it in the first place. And I got a lot of folks right now, I know, as Ms. Thurman said, there are many in the country that are having a good economic time. I would suggest in the Midwest and in many of the farm sections, as she knows, that is not necessarily the case, in the Midwest in particular. It's why I fought so hard to get the chairman to consider some of the ag provisions, which he did without much pressure from me or anybody else. I mean, that's the way I think, has a predisposition to do. And so I would just suggest that we have done the job of repaying the debt. We have done the job of protecting Social Security in this bill. And yes, there is a modest tax package which builds on all that we have already voted on, as you said, to accelerate those provisions which are already in the law, such as 100% deductibility. I think we're all on that bill. We just want to move it forward, and I think this is a reasonable way of doing it. So I hear the tone changing, and I hope it continues, because if it's just a battle, if we want to just have a political issue about Social Security, fine, we can do that. But I do think there are some people in here that are thinking reasonably about our fiscal policy, and I hear it in the tone of the last two speakers in particular, and I would hope it continues, because it does not have to be just a political debate over Social Security.
Chair, Mr. Rangel is recognized for hopefully a brief closing of the debate.
Very brief, Mr. Chairman. I think we all recognize that we have assurances that before this bill gets to the floor, that we have to change the budget rules because it's not paid for. If there was any question about that, I think the fact that you called it 90-10 means that 10% is not paid for. We're not going to challenge the merits of the tax cut. All we're saying is that, according to the CBO, the budget surplus over the next 5 years will be $520 billion. If you don't count the Social Security funds, the budget, in fact, runs a deficit of $137 billion over that period. So the question is whether or not we want to take the money that comes from the payroll tax that's dedicated to paying the Social Security benefits, or do we want, on the eve of an election, to redistribute it to the general population? So we say that we truly believe that that we should not use a part of the money that should be dedicated to the Social Security Trust Fund. We say save Social Security first. For those who believe that that may be a political question, That can't be denied. The question is whether or not those will take advantage of supporting a tax cut, which is always popular, or supporting Social Security, which is always responsible. All we're saying is that take care of the trust fund and then get on with the tax cut. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chair, I apologize. Could I be recognized to make a correction?
Gentleman is recognized for a correction.
The figure I used was $43 billion of debt repayment. We just checked with Treasury, and according to their figures, it is a net $84 billion worth of debt repayment this year. Thank you.
The question is on the Rangel Amendment. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
Any the chair, the noes have it.
Roll
Noes have
call.
it. The amendment is not agreed to. Evidently a sufficient show of hands. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Crane?
No.
Mr. Crane votes no. Mr. Thomas?
No.
Mr. Thomas votes no. Mr. Shaw? Mrs. Johnson? Mrs. Johnson? Mr. Bunning?
No.
Mr. Bunning votes no. Mr. Houghton? Mr. Houghton votes no. Mr. Herger? Mr. Herger votes no. Mr. McCreary? Mr. McCreary votes no. Mr. Camp? Mr. Camp votes no. Mr. Ramstad? No. Mr. Ramstad votes no. Mr. Nussel? No. Mr. Nussel votes no. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes no. Ms. Dunn? Ms. Dunn votes no. Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins votes no. Mr. Portman? No. Mr. Portman votes no. Mr. English? No. Mr. English votes no. Mr. Ensign? Yeah. Mr. Ensign votes no. Mr. Christensen? Mr. Christensen votes no. Mr. Watkins? Mr. Watkins votes no. Mr. Hayworth? No. Mr. Hayworth votes no. Mr. Weller?
No.
Mr. Weller votes no. Mr. Hulshoff?
No.
Mr. Hulshoff votes no. Mr. Rangel?
Aye.
Mr. Rangel votes aye. Mr. Stark?
Aye.
Mr. Stark votes aye. Mr. Matsui?
Aye.
Mr. Matsui votes aye. Mrs. Kennelly? Mr. Coyne? Aye. Mr. Coyne votes aye. Mr. Levin? Aye. Mr. Levin votes aye. Mr. Carden? Aye. Mr. Carden votes aye. Mr. McDermott? Aye. Mr. McDermott votes aye. Mr. Kletchka? Mr. Kletchka votes aye. Mr. Lewis? Mr. Lewis votes aye. Mr. Neal? Mr. Neal votes aye. Mr. McNulty? Mr. McNulty votes aye. Mr. Jefferson? Mr. Jefferson votes aye. Mr. Tanner? Mr. Tanner votes aye. Mr. Becerra? Mr. Becerra votes aye. Mrs. Thurman? Yes. Mrs. Thurman votes yes. Mr. Shaw? Mr. Shaw votes no. Mrs. Johnson? Mrs. Johnson votes no. Mr. Archer?
No.
Mr. Archer votes no.
No.
Clerk will announce the vote.
15 aye, 23 no.
And the amendment is not agreed to. Are there further amendments? If not, the chair is prepared to put the question on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to.
Roll call?
Roll call is requested.
Oh, do the next one. Go ahead to the next one. Go ahead. Go to final passage.
Okay. All right. The request for a roll call has been withdrawn. Chair recognizes Mr. Crane for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee favorably report H.R. 4578 as amended to the House.
Questions on the motion. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair. The ayes have it. Roll call requested. Evidently a sufficient show of hands. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Crane?
Aye.
Mr. Crane votes aye. Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas votes aye. Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw votes aye. Mrs. Johnson? Aye. Mrs. Johnson votes aye. Mr. Bunning?
Aye.
Mr. Bunning votes aye. Mr. Houghton? Mr. Houghton votes aye. Mr. Herger? Mr. Herger votes aye. Mr. McCreary? Mr. McCreary votes aye. Mr. Camp? Mr. Camp votes aye. Mr. Ramstad? Mr. Ramstad votes aye. Mr. Nussel?
Aye.
Mr. Nussel votes aye. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes aye. Ms. Dunn? Ms. Dunn votes aye. Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins votes yes. Mr. Portman? Mr. English?
Aye.
Mr. English votes aye. Mr. Ensign?
Aye.
Mr. Ensign votes aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen votes aye. Mr. Watkins? Mr. Watkins votes aye. Mr. Hayworth?
Aye.
Mr. Hayworth votes aye. Mr. Weller?
Aye.
Mr. Weller votes aye. Mr. Holsoff?
Aye.
Mr. Holsoff votes aye. Mr. Rangel?
No.
Mr. Rangel votes no. Mr. Stark? Mr. Stark votes no. Mr. Matsui? Mr. Matsui votes no. Mrs. Kennelly? Mrs. Kennelly votes aye. Mr. Coyne? Mr. Coyne votes no. Mr. Levin? Mr. Levin votes no. Mr. Carden? Mr. Carden votes no. Mr. McDermott? Mr. McDermott votes no. Mr. Kletchka? Mr. Kletchka votes no. Mr. Lewis? Mr. Lewis votes no. Mr. Neal? Mr. Neal votes no. Mr. McNulty? Mr. McNulty votes no. Mr. Jefferson? Mr. Jefferson votes no. Mr. Tanner? Mr. Tanner votes no. Mr. Becerra? Mr. Becerra votes no. Mrs. Thurman? Mrs. Thurman votes no. Mr. Portman? Mr. Archer?
Aye.
Mr. Archer votes aye.
Oh.
We just voted.
Clerk will announce the vote.
22 aye, 15 no.
And the motion is agreed to. Mr. Crane for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 20 of the Rules of the House that the committee authorize the chairman to offer such motions as may be necessary in the House to go to conference with the Senate on the bill H.R. 4579 or a similar Senate bill.
Questions on the motion. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Without objection, the staff is granted customary technical drafting authority.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Thomas.
Could I ask unanimous consent to speak out of order and indicate that Mr. Portman is on the floor debating an issue, and that is why he was not here for the vote?
The record will show that. We now consider H.R. 4578, the Protect Social Security Account bill. This bill would implement the first part of our 90-10 plan by setting aside 90% of the surplus until we save Social Security.
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order. We cannot hear.
The gentleman is correct. The chair would encourage the public in the audience to please withdraw from the room as quietly as possible and as rapidly as possible. For those who wish to leave, for those who wish to stay, we would encourage you to take a seat and give the committee the opportunity to be heard.
Okay.
Can we move this next one and finish until it's
I'd like to. Ask Charlie. That's fine with me.
Don't talk. You can't talk to me. I won't let you talk to me. I won't let you talk to me, Phil. Talk.
You're embargoed.
No.
This bill implements the first part of our 90-10 plan by setting aside 90% of the surplus until we save Social Security. The bill is based on legislation offered earlier this year by Mr. Bunning, chairman of the Social Security Subcommittee. It's identical to his bill, except that where he would have reserved 100% of the surplus, this bill reserves 90% of the surplus. Mr. Rangel, I believe, was a co-sponsor of that bill with Mr. Bunning. Mr. Bunning, you deserve our congratulations for your efforts on behalf of seniors. Not only did you lead the way to protect seniors by increasing the earnings limit in 1996, you are now leading the fight for the disabled by helping them return to work as quickly as they're able. The plan we vote on now establishes a special reserve account within the Treasury called the Protect Social Security Account. The account will save budget surpluses until a reform measure is enacted to ensure the long-term solvency of Social Security. Given the fact that Mr. Rangel has offered legislation along the same lines as Mr. Bunning's plan, and now the plan in this bill, I'm sure that this will not be a controversial item. I now recognize Mr. Rangel for his opening statement on the bill, and prior to that, without objection, written statements by other members on this bill will also be included in the record. Mr. Rangel.
Mr. Chairman, once again, I am honored to be associated with my friend and colleague, Mr. Bunning, in trying to give the American people some security in recognizing that that we got to set aside the money in order to pay the benefits that the people will deserve. When we raised this issue the last time, some people were critical and did not believe that we went far enough and called it merely a bookkeeping scheme that would allow the Congress still to use that money, notwithstanding the fact that we thought we were putting it in some type of a lockbox situation. And so what I hope to do is support the concept and open up and offer an amendment that would actually take the Social Security surplus in each fiscal year and transfer it to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to be held in trust for the Social Security program, so that these politicians that we have in Washington will not be able to get their grubby hands on it and use that funds for spending other than the benefits of the beneficiary. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any member who needs to have an explanation of this by Ms. Hildred? If not, Section 1 of the bill is now open for amendment, and I offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute, which is now before the members of the committee. It was distributed in advance. Is there any, perhaps you should explain this, Ms. Hildred.
Sure. The amendment contains a technical amendment which clarifies that amounts to the fund will be paid in annually at the end of each fiscal year.
All right. Are there amendments to the amendment?
Nope.
The chair hears none. The question is on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The chair now recognizes Mr. Crane for the purpose of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee favorably report H.R. 4578 as amended to the House.
I had an amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I asked her there.
Oh, no, I said it was an amendment to Bunning that I had.
You mean
To the amendment.
I asked her their amendments, and I waited. No, nobody said anything.
No. When they moved,
Nobody
no
said
one
anything.
moved.
Well,
I said that.
I think
On the amendment, those in favor.
in my opening statement, I made it clear that while I supported Mr. Bunning in concept, that
The committee will retrace its steps. Mr. Rangel did not realize that the time had passed for his asking to offer an amendment, so the chair asks unanimous consent that we be able to retrace our steps and go back to the consideration of the amendment in the nature of a substitute, which is open for amendment. Are there amendments to the amendment?
I have an amendment.
Mr. Rangel.
My amendment follows the same concept that Mr. Bunning and I had last year, except that it takes the entire amount and puts it and transfer it to the Federal Reserve Bank in New York to be held in trust for the Social Security program. And I ask for a vote on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the courtesy that you've extended.
The amendment, I assume, is being distributed, and pending the distribution, the gentleman is recognized to explain his amendment.
Well, I've explained it. It's instead of the 90%, it's 100%. Instead of just a separate account, it goes into the...
But the gentleman yield.
The question...
Yeah.
You just yield for one moment, just so I can understand it. the reason why I support the Rangel Amendment is that if we don't adopt it, then we are by inference, legitimating the use of 10% of the surplus funds for other than reserving it for Social Security. If we do nothing, the money is preserved. If we pass the bill without this amendment, we are allowing the use of the surplus funds for Social Security. The Rangel Amendment guarantees that all the surplus funds will be preserved for Social Security, and I support the amendment.
Mr. Bunning, for one quick response.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that we are reserving 90% of it, and the other, and that's what we do to save Social Security. That's more than ample by the time we have a reform of the Social Security system. And I move rejection of the Rangel Amendment.
Chairman.
Question is on the Rangel Amendment.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a quick question of staff?
Mr. Becerra.
If I could ask a question, Ms. Hildred. The amendment by Mr. Rangel, if the projections by CBO and OMB are accurate about the size of the surplus over the next 10 years, how much money would be placed in deposit with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York over the next 10 years?
If I read this right, the amendment would preserve the entire amount of the Social Security surplus.
Correct.
Social Security surplus, according to current estimates, is about 1.5 trillion.
Now, if this amendment fails, under the Bunning legislation, where 90% is reserved, how much would be reserved under the Bunning legislation?
The amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by Mr. Archer, 10% of the budget surplus would be 1.4 trillion.
How much?
How much would be reserved, did you say? I'm
Right.
sorry.
How much?
90% of the budget surplus.
Which would be how much?
1.4 trillion.
1.43 trillion. So we're 1.5 trillion versus 1.43 trillion. Is that the difference?
1.5 minus 1.4.
The 1.43 trillion would be preserved or placed in this savings account under the Archer Amendment. Under the Rangel Amendment, what would be the sum that would be placed in savings?
The amount of the Social Security surplus, which is estimated to be 1.5 trillion.
So the difference between the Rangel Amendment and the Archer Amendment is about $170 billion. 700. What's the difference? Give me the quick math.
What?
Why does Marcia?
It's not it.
It's about the difference between 1.5, 1.6, and 14, which is about 116 billion. 116 billion.
1.16?
Will the gentleman yield?
Wait a minute.
I think he's getting bad information.
Yeah.
Chairman, Chairman, regular order, I'd just like to ask to make sure I understand what the difference is in between the two amendments. The Rangel Amendment says save 100% and place it in deposit with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
Okay.
That's 1.5.
Can you be as accurate as possible then at what is 100% of the Social Security contributions that we'll have over the next 10 years?
According to CBO estimates, 1999 through 2008, the 10-year estimate is 1.5.
1.5.
1.5.
1.5 trillion. 1.5 trillion.
Correct.
Under the Archer Amendment, where you would preserve 90%, how much would be saved?
No, two different things.
Oh,
Two different
if I could
things.
just get an answer to the question.
Well,
how much?
Gentleman has
Regular
not.
order, Mr. Chairman. I'd be willing to yield to the gentleman.
The
if I-
If you yield for a clarification.
The gentleman has not yielded. Mr. Becerra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could get a response then, in terms of the Archer Amendment, which would preserve 90% of the Social Security contributions over the next 10 years, how much would be reserved in this account?
The Archer Amendment does not preserve 90% of the Social Security surpluses. It preserves 90% of the federal budget.
Now she's on to it.
Now
Now she's got it.
And then,
It's apples and
tell us
oranges.
then what would be preserved at that point.
14, according to current CBO estimates, 1.4 trillion.
So about a $100 billion difference.
Correct.
And that would include, among that $100 billion difference, Social Security contributions that make up some of that surplus monies, correct?
The Archer Amendment does not change law with respect to Social Security. FICA taxes still
Correct.
go under current
So
law into the trust
the
fund.
specific question to you is, among the $100 billion difference between what is preserved by the Rangel Amendment and what is preserved by the Archer Amendment would include Social Security trust contributions.
It's $100 billion of the current unified budget surplus.
And is any of that made up of Social Security contributions?
Yes.
Is any of that made up of Yes.
Okay. And is that enough by itself over the next 10 years to make up that surplus, that $100 billion difference in surplus?
Is the difference $100 billion? Yes.
And of the 1.5 trillion in surplus, how much of it comes from the Social Security account?
The Archer Amendment does not affect the Social
No,
Security
I'm
trust
just saying, I see my time has expired. Last question. And how much of the $1.5 trillion that's been identified as a surplus over the next 10 years comes from Social Security accounts?
fund. The Archer Amendment does not affect the Social Security trust funds.
No, I'm not asking if the Archer...
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman. Chair would like to put the question on the Rangel Amendment. We have been through, for 3 hours, a discussion of this. I would hope that members would understand this issue by now after the rather intense discussion that we have already had. If members want to insist on a further deliberation of this issue, then the chair, of course, will accommodate. But the chair would like to put the question on the Rangel Amendment. Does anyone insist? Mr. Thomas.
Very briefly, since that discussion shed no light on anything, Ms. Hildred, if you would take the Rangel Amendment and on the first page, section 1, lines 11 to 14, explain to me what the Rangel Amendment purports to put away in New York City. It's the excess of the receipts in the trust funds. What trust funds are that? Social Security trust funds?
It would appear yes.
Over the outlays from such funds. Which funds are those? The Social Security trust funds? During such year. What does the Archer substitute deal with?
The unified budget surplus.
I didn't hear you.
The unified budget surplus.
It says on page 1, line 16, the total budget of the United States government. It deals with a different amount, a different budget than the Rangel Amendment. So you cannot compare the amount of money dealt with in the Rangel Amendment with the amendment offered by Mr. Archer. Any attempt to compare and contrast is a waste of the committee's time. I yield back.
Chair is prepared to put the amendment, the Rangel Amendment, for a vote. Those in favor of the Rangel Amendment will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The Rangel Amendment is not agreed to. Record vote requested, evidently a sufficient show of hands. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Crane? No. Mr. Crane votes no. Mr. Thomas? No. Mr. Thomas votes no. Mr. Shaw? No. Mr. Shaw votes no. Mrs. Johnson? No. Mrs. Johnson votes no. Mr. Bunning? No. Mr. Bunning votes no. Mr. Houghton? Mr. Houghton votes no. Mr. Herger? Mr. Herger votes no. Mr. McCreary? Mr. McCreary votes no. Mr. Camp? No. Mr. Camp votes no. Mr. Ramstad? Mr. Nussel? No. Mr. Nussel votes no. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes no. Ms. Dunn? Ms. Dunn votes no. Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins votes no. Mr. Portman? Mr. Portman votes no. Mr. English? Mr. English? Mr. English votes no. Mr. Ensign? Mr. Christensen? Mr. Christensen votes no. Mr. Watkins? Mr. Watkins votes no. Mr. Hayworth? Mr. Hayworth votes no. Mr. Weller?
No.
Mr. Weller votes no. Mr. Hulshoff?
No.
Mr. Hulshoff votes no. Mr. Rangel? Aye. Mr. Rangel votes aye. Mr. Stark? Mr. Stark votes aye. Mr. Matsui? Mr. Matsui votes aye. Mrs. Kennelly? Mr. Coyne? Aye. Mr. Coyne votes aye. Mr. Levin? Mr. Levin votes aye. Mr. Cardin? Mr. Cardin votes aye. Mr. Kletchka? Mr. Kletchka votes aye. Mr. McDermott? Mr. McDermott? Mr. McDermott votes aye. Mr. Lewis? Mr. Lewis votes aye. Mr. Neal? Mr. Neal votes aye. Mr. McNulty? Mr. McNulty votes aye. Mr. Jefferson? Mr. Jefferson votes aye. Mr. Tanner? Mr. Tanner votes aye. Mr. Becerra? Mr. Becerra votes aye. Mrs. Thurman? Mrs. Thurman votes aye. Mr. Ramstad? No. Mr. Ramstad votes no. Mrs. Kennelly? Oh, Mr. Ensign? Mr. Archer? Mr. Archer?
Mr. Archer votes no.
Mr. Archer votes no.
After you announce this one, announce the correction on the other.
Clerk will announce the vote.
15 aye, 22 no.
And the amendment is not agreed to. Chair recognizes, are there further amendments to the chairman's substitute? If not, the question is on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The chair recognizes Mr. Crane for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee favorably report H.R. 4578 as amended to the House.
Question is on the motion. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Before the chair recognizes Mr. Crane for the final motion, the chair would like to express its heartfelt sympathies to the family of Kathleen O'Connell, who recently passed away. She had been an economist on the Ways and Means Committee since 1991 and sadly died of cancer on August the 29th in her home. She had done enormous public service during her life, and we are most saddened at her passing. Mr. Rangel.
I would just like to join with you, Mr. Chairman, and hope that our prayers might ease the pain of her husband and her family. She was a dedicated public servant and served our committee well.
Chair recognizes Mr. Crane for hopefully the last motion and vote of today.
Mr. Chairman, I move pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 20 of the Rules of the House that the committee authorize the chairman to offer such motions as may be necessary in the House to go to conference with the Senate on the bill H.R. 4578 or a similar Senate bill.
The question is on the motion. Those in favor will say aye. Opposed, no. And Continued chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to, and without objection, the staff was granted customary technical drafting authority. And the chair now, before we adjourn, the chair recognizes the clerk for a correction on the last vote.
The vote on the Crane motion to favorably report H.R. 4579 as amended was 2315, not 2215.
The corrected vote in favor of the Crane motion on the tax bill was 23 to 15 in favor of reporting the bill.
It's a pleasure doing business with you.
There being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.
All right, see you later. Great to see you.
remarks from William Ivey, Chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts. At 8:30 a.m., live coverage of the U.S. Senate.
Every weekend, make an appointment with Book TV on C-SPAN2. Saturdays, join us for Encore Book Notes at 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern. The Business of Books airs Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 2 a.m. Children's Books, Saturday afternoons at 3 and Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. You'll see books on history, Saturdays at 8 and 11. Biographies will be featured Sundays at noon and 6 p.m. Eastern. And then more books. Throughout the weekend, Book TV will feature author interviews, tours of bookstores and libraries, group discussions, and more. This weekend, Book TV starts off with Encore Book Notes, Saturday at 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern. Author Richard Norton Smith discusses his book, Patriarch. Then, The Business of Books, Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday at 2 a.m. Eastern. We'll interview Judith Regan, publisher of Regan Books. Then we'll look at children's books, Saturday afternoon at 3 and Sunday morning at 10. From the Maui Writers Conference, a panel discussion on the future of children's books. Saturday night at 8 and 11, History on Book TV. Author Anthony Pitch talks about The Burning of Washington, a narrative of the British attempt to occupy our nation's capital during the War of 1812. On Sunday at noon and 6 p.m. Eastern, a biography. Georgia Representative John Lewis talks about his memoir, Walking with the Wind. 48 hours of nonfiction books on TV. Book TV on C-SPAN 2. All books, all weekend, every weekend.
Now the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, William Ivey. He spoke at the National Press Club in Washington. His remarks and a question and answer session are about 1 hour.
Good afternoon and welcome to the National Press Club. This is our 90th anniversary year. My name is Doug Harbrecht. I'm president of the National Press Club and Washington News editor of Business Week magazine, a McGraw-Hill Companies publication. I'd like to welcome club members and their guests in the audience today, as well as those of you watching on C-SPAN or listening to this program on National Public Radio. Before introducing our head table, I would like to remind our members of some upcoming speakers. Next week, former Secretary of State James Baker speaks about his experiences during the Cold War and looks ahead to the new future on September 23rd. Ted Forsman, venture capitalist and founder of Children's Scholarship Fund, speaks on September 28th. On October 1st, Senator Joseph Lieberman of Connecticut will discuss the future of education reform as well as some other topics, which we will ask him about. And on October 2nd, Army Chief of Staff General Dennis Reimer will speak. Transcripts and audio files of National Press Club luncheons will be posted this afternoon at our website at npc.press.org. To purchase audio and videotapes, please call 1-888-343-1940. If you have any questions for our speaker today, please write them on the cards provided at your table and pass them up to me. I will ask as many as time permits. I'd now like to introduce our head table guests and ask them to stand briefly when their names are called. Please hold your applause until all our head table guests have been introduced. From your right, Julia Dean, Washington Times. Carl Hartman, Associated Press. Penny Bender, Nashville, Tennessean. Irvin Milotsky, The New York Times. I'm going to violate my own instruction for just a minute, please. We have with us today Kate Goggin. Kate has been my executive assistant up here at the National Press Club for the last 2 years. She's going to be leaving shortly. She is wonderful. I hope many of you had a chance to meet Kate over these past 2 years. She has been a lifesaver. She's worked very closely with Ken Esky. She is going to be communications consultant and managing editor of her own website, The Art of International Living, and I just want to recognize her for the fine work she's done. Kate, thank you very much. Ann Greer, National Museum for Women in the Arts and theater critic for America Online. Ken Esky, Chairman of the Speakers Committee. Gordon Smith, I'm skipping over our speaker for just a minute. Gordon Smith, the Gordon Smith Company, and member of the Speakers Committee who arranged today's lunch. Douglas Wheeler, President, Washington Performing Arts Society. Trey Graham, USA Today. Maria Riccio, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Louise Remy, speechwriter for Nancy Hanks and first chairman of the Endowment for the Arts. And J. Carter Brown, Chairman, U.S. Commission of Fine Arts and Ovation, the Arts Networks. Many of you know J. Carter Brown. Welcome. Our speaker today, Bill Ivey, 7th Chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, seems to have arrived in his new post from several different directions. Regarded by some as a Southern voice in the art spectrum, he is a celebrated folklorist and musicologist by way of the, get this, the University of Michigan, Indiana University, Brooklyn College, and Vanderbilt University. Called an amazing generalist by Michael Green of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, Mr. Green went on to say that if you look at his track record in terms of arts advocacy, he has always gone down the center. This could be an attribute the White House was looking for when it approved Mr. Ivey to run the 33-year-old agency, as well as the stated reason the president was looking for someone who could come in and run the agency right off the bat. His ability to take charge at NEA bears a strong relationship to his service on 15 NEA panels and as chairman of the agency's Folks Arts panel. Regarded as a strong voice in national arts policy, Mr. Ivey said at the time of his appointment that I would welcome the possibility of working in a leadership role, and it would be the ultimate job for me. He has stated a firmly held belief that America's creativity is democracy's calling card, worthy of support by all Americans. Mr. Ivey seems to be acting in a leadership role already, considering his varied experience as director of the Country Music Foundation in Nashville,